Hey there, it's Leslie from Leslie's Cookies and Treats, and today I'm decorating the cutest little scarecrow cookie you'll ever see. So join me and I'll describe how to bring this adorable cookie to life step by step. Let's get started. So all of the royal icing consistencies I'm using for this video are going to be more of a thicker fluid consistency, more of around a 20-second consistency. And so I'm going to outline the sections and then use my scribe to settle the icing down. And I also want to leave separation between areas of icing, so I'm going to pipe one area like I just did the shoe, and then I'm going to move on to the hat and leave that shoe time to crust over and dry before I pipe the rest of the shoe or anything that's right next to it. So for the hat, I want it to be really puffy for the brim, so I put a big bead of icing down the middle, and I'm just going to let that dry for a little while I go ahead and pipe the rest of the hat. Once you have the top of the hat flooded in, use your scribe to settle the icing down. It doesn't need to be perfect because we're going to go over the top of it again with a straw pattern. And we'll let that dry for a little while we move down and pipe in his face. So taking a flesh tone or a straw colored royal icing, go ahead and pipe in his face and smooth it out with your scribe. It really doesn't take that long to smooth out. So I really recommend that you use a little bit thicker icing and take the time to use your scribe to settle it down. And if your scribe is sticking to the icing, just wipe it off and then gently tap at it. Now I'm going to move down to where his hand would be and just put some straw here. So I'm going to make some rows of icing and then just let those dry, and then I'll come back in later and pipe in some more. And then I'm going to pipe in his shirt using the light green icing. This is the icing I had on hand. I did not make these cookies for part of a set. They're just for fun, and I'm only making 2 of them, so I did not want to make new royal icing. So I'm using some icing I just finished for a Christmas set that I was doing. And as always, after flooding the little sections, I'm going to use my scribe to settle the icing down and make sure it gets all the way down to the cookie instead of sitting up on top of the outline. That is the number one thing that helps prevent craters, in my opinion. And while we give the shirt some time to dry, I'm going to go back up to the hat and pipe a couple of lines to start the straw, and then I'm going to let those dry for a little while. My icing is a 20-second consistency, but it probably would have been better to have a stiffer consistency, more like a 25 to 30-second consistency for the straw hat. So I'm just going to let those lines set up for a little bit before I come back in and pipe the rest. And in the meantime, I'll add some more straw to his hand and over his one shoe that has already dried and crusted over. And his face is also dried and crusted over, so we can go ahead and add some straw hair as well. And if you wipe off the tip of your piping bag between each line, it will help you from getting that big bump at the start. Just keep a damp paper towel nearby so you can wipe off your fingers. And I'm just going to take my scribe and push down those ends so that it's underneath where the hat brim will go. And then moving on up to the hat, let's go ahead and make little lines. Try to evenly space them, going over the top of the line that we already piped. This is how we will make the straw hat look. And I'm just going to let that dry for a few minutes while I move back down to his overalls and put a line for separation between his pants. And now that my cookie's dried for about 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to come back in and make the lines that are going to go in between the lines we already made and over the top of that horizontal line. Just make a series of lines all the way across, wiping off the tip of your piping bag between each line. And then you can use a damp paintbrush to push down any tips that are hanging off the edge. And then we'll move back down to our overalls. So I'm just going to outline and flood those in. And you can see that my icing is a little bit thicker. It's more of the 20-second consistency, like I said, so it's not quite smoothing out. And if you wiggle your piping bag as you're piping and flooding, it will help it smooth out so you don't have to spend as much time with the scribe. It really only takes a second with the scribe, and you can shape it and get it really nice and smooth. Now I want to give him a little bit more hair before we pipe in the rest of the hat, so I'm just going to add a little bit more straw here on top of his head. And then we can also give him the fingers or straw for his other hand here that's just going to come up to his face kind of in an oh my type of way. And so now we'll just flood in the rest of this hat band, putting a large amount of icing here because we want it to be nice and full and have some dimension and be raised up over his face. And I'm just going to take my scribe and settle it down just a bit. We don't need this to be perfectly smooth because we're going to be making the straw hat look on top of it again. And I wanted to tell you that if you've never tried cookie decorating, you should really give it a shot. I'm not an artist, I can't draw, but I can play with royal icing and color in the lines, and you can too with just a little bit of practice and make these adorable cookies that make great personal gifts or are the talk of the dinner party. They're really so much fun, and I encourage you to give it a try. I'm just adding another layer of straw here to the fingers and over the shoe, and then I'm going to go ahead and pipe in the cuffs to his shirt. And really, to be technical, I just put a blob of icing down and I'm shaping it with my scribe. It's a technical cookie term, a blob of icing, and I'm doing it again here for the cuffs of his pants. And I hope that you're decorating along with me and you just put a blob down too. So moving up to his neck here, let's give him a little bandana. So I'm just going to make a couple of lines going in an X shape, and then we'll put a big knot in the middle when it has had a chance to set up a little bit. And you probably can't see it here, but I have some black edible marker that's showing, and I don't want it to show, so I'm going to give him a little bit more straw for some more hair. And then moving back to his hat, I'm just going to outline the entire hat brim. And I'm lifting my icing bag up a little bit and watching the line of icing where it drops, and I'm going slow so that I can place it exactly where I want it. And then we can go ahead and make our horizontal lines across the hat brim and give those a chance to set up and dry for just a few minutes before we go ahead and make the vertical lines like we did with the hat before. To make the lines, you just want to start squeezing a little bit out of your bag and then touch it down and then pull across with even pressure and then stop squeezing and drop the line down at the end. And if you do get any bumps at the start and stop points, you can use your scribe to settle those down. Okay, I'm going to layer a little bit more hay on this one shoe, and then let's move back up to his hat and start making our vertical lines across this bottom row of icing that we just piped. And we'll just do this all the way across, trying to maintain an even spacing between all of the little lines. This straw hat really brings your scarecrow kind of up to the next level. It's so easy to do, but most people don't understand how easy it is, and so they really think you have a really fancy cookie on your hands, when we're just going in between the lines that we already made and making new vertical lines across the top of this horizontal line. Just rinse and repeat all the way across until you finish your hat. I'm going to speed the video up just a little bit since you've seen this. And if you've messed up, here's another handy dandy use for that scribe tool. Just shape that little line right into place and then continue on. And once you're done with all the straw, go ahead and make a line for the hat band. And as always, I'm going to use my scribe to kind of settle it down a bit. And we're almost done threading this cutie, so I'm going to put in the cuff for his sleeve, we'll put in the other cuff for his pant leg, and the knot for his tie, and he'll be done. So add your blobs of icing and use that scribe to settle them down. I think I couldn't decorate cookies without my scribe. It's definitely my most used tool. And as an afterthought, I decided to give him a couple of little pockets. They should have been more off to the side, but this is cute too. And one last thing to add is a little flower on his hat. So I'm just going to take my yellow icing and make 5 big dots. And then I'll grab my scribe and drag those dots into a point in the center. If you need more icing in your dots, just go ahead and give it another little dot and continue to drag it towards the center. We'll let that crust over for a minute before we go back in and add this orange little dot in the center. And then all of our icing is done. Let this guy dry completely. I let him dry overnight, and then I'm just going to give him some rosy cheeks with some luster dust. It's really kind of hard to see in the video here, but he does have rather pink cheeks. And then using my black edible marker, I'm just going to make the pockets. And then I want to give a plaid pattern to the shirt, so I'm actually going to take an orange edible marker and just give his shirt a plaid pattern. And then with my green edible marker, I'm just going to outline the entire set of overalls. I just wanted to make it stand out a little bit more and give it a little bit more definition. You could also do this with an airbrush or with dry dusts. Just brush them on, but I'm just going to outline it with my edible marker. And then I'm also going to do that with the shirt just to make it have a little bit more definition between these cuffs. And then finally, I'll give a little plaid pattern to his bandana. Then we'll add a couple of little freckles on his cheeks, and this cutie will be done and ready to enjoy. I hope you think he's as adorable as I do. And if you did enjoy this, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me out a lot, and I'm so thankful and grateful for all of your support. I really enjoy making tutorials for all of you, so drop me a note in the comments and let me know what else you'd like to see. Thanks.